Chapter 69 Evil Soul Master. We've already informed the guards from the Douluo Empire stationed near the Mingdo Mountains before we departed. They'll provide us with a detailed map and accurate information in due course. If there are no further questions, we have to depart at full speed. Keep your guardian rings properly. You can only wear them when you're executing a mission. Everyone expressed that they were ready one after the other. Ma Xiaotao then said, the ones with lower cultivations will slow us down. There's no way we can accommodate you guys, so we're going to do things this way. I'll take Huo Yuao along with me. Da Yuheng, you take Wang Dong. Ling Luoken, you take Xia Xiao with you. Let's go. Ever since Ma Xiaodao started giving her presentation regarding the Guardian mission, Elder Sun hadn't said another word. Everything was in Ma Xiaodao's control. This was not only his confidence in Ma Xiaodao's ability to command a group, but it was also a way for her to polish her skills. It would be no good if a dragon lacked a leader. This Guardian mission was also the final learning curve for them all before the tournament started. I want Senior Sister Ma to take me with her. Wang Dong suddenly spoke before rushing to Ma Xiaodao's side. He continued talking as he smiled with admiration. Senior Sister Ma, I admire you the most. Can you take me along with you? Ma Xiaodao was stunned for a moment before she smiled and said, fine, I'll take you with me. Da Yuheng, you take Huo Yuao with you. Let's go. As she spoke, she dragged Wang Dong's underarm up with her right hand and leapt up, taking off on their journey. Da Yuheng and Ling Luoken also reacted in the same way, taking Huo Yuao and Xia Xiao respectively as they accelerated. Huo Yuao was silently cursing in his heart. Since when did Wang Dong admire Ma Xiaotao? It actually seemed as though the ineffable hostility he had directed towards Senior Sister Ma before was real. What was that guy doing? Just because he knew this didn't mean that Ma Xiaotao knew it too. With Ma Xiaotao's help, Wang Dong now had a contented look on his face. He was extremely pleased with himself for what he'd done. Only he knew of the little scheme he'd concocted in his heart. This full-scale acceleration revealed how powerful the inner courtyard disciples were. Bei, Shu Sanqi and Zhang Nanan were already going all out, but they were still finding it extremely tough to follow along. On the other hand, Hikato was in slightly better condition than them because he had an accelerator soul tool helping him. He could control how much he wished to speed up with a rank 4 accelerator soul tool. Adding on to the fact that he had a robust body, it wasn't that strenuous for him to follow closely behind Ma Xiaotao. Even though Ma Xiaotao was bringing Wang Dong along with her, she'd remained at the forefront since they'd set off. She even had to slow down from time to time and wait for those behind her. The immense speed stemming from her torrential fire phoenix soul could be seen as clear as day. Huo Yuao felt like he was riding on clouds as Da Yuheng pulled him along. Da Yuheng supported Huo Yuao's underarm with his wide and powerful palm. Just like a steady and soft support, Da Yuheng would cover more than 10 meters every time the tips of his feet touched the ground, darting forth like an arrow. When he was just about to slow down, the tip of his foot would immediately touch the ground once more, causing him to speed up. As a result of that, he was extremely stable even though they were advancing very quickly. Huo Yuao didn't have to do anything, but could still move forward at such a high speed thanks to Da Yuheng. The scenery on both sides of the road was a blur. Even with his spirit eyes, Huo Yuao still felt rather dizzy at the sight. Yuao, I heard that things aren't pleasant between you and my younger brother. Da Yuheng asked Huo Yuao as he ran at full speed. Huo Yuao was taken aback, not because of what Da Yuheng said, but because he could actually talk without the slightest hint of a tremble in his voice while running at such a high speed. He spoke just like he was holding a normal conversation. Da Yuheng was really a person of formidable ability. Yeah. Huo Yuheng ambiguously snorted out. Da Yuheng had a sincere look on his face as he said, even though I don't know how you guys became enemies, I think Huobin is in the wrong. As his elder brother, I'll apologize on his behalf. Huobin's been exceptionally talented ever since he was a kid, which eventually forms the arrogant attitude he has now. I've already reprimanded him before, and even slapped him across the face. Now that I think about it, that was the first time I've hit him. Let bygones be bygones. We're all in Shrek Academy to cultivate. You're now a member of the Guardian team, so we'll be brothers in arms and fellow soldiers from now on. I hope you won't hold any more grudges in your heart, and speak up if you need help. I'll repay what Huobin owes you on his behalf. Da Yuheng worded his sentences too beautifully. If it wasn't for the fact that Huo Yuao had truly felt the maliciousness and strong killing intent coming from Da Yuheng before, he might have really felt embarrassed by his actions before because of what Da Yuheng said. However, he could only sneer at the other party in his heart now. Is Da Yuheng trying to rope me in? Senior brother, I am actually in the wrong as well. You're right. Let bygones be bygones. Huo Yuao really couldn't mask his expressions like Da Yuheng. He couldn't put such a sincere look on his face. He could only try his best to remain calm. How could a few apologetic sentences settle the grudge he held towards them for killing his mother, along with the miserable and hard life that he'd faced since he was a child? What's more, Huo Yuao's perception was sharper than most people's. With the spiritual detection, Huo Yuao saw that Da Yuheng's pulse was calm all throughout when he was talking a moment ago, with nothing out of the ordinary. That also meant that he was in a stable frame of mind, which was incompatible with how one would usually be a little excited when being sincere. Da Yuheng was slightly more pleased when he heard what Huo Yuao said. He could see that Huo Yuao still harbored ill feelings in his heart, but from his point of view, Huo Yuao was only a child who didn't reveal his emotions regardless of how talented he was. Conversely, it was normal for him to show reluctance and hesitation in his expression. However, it wasn't a bad start, since he was willing to let the previous matter pass. From his point of view, it wasn't that difficult to rope in a child. Moreover, Huo Yuao's skill was quite good, but his level of cultivation was too low after all was said and done. At the moment, his level of cultivation was still far from a level that could threaten him. Thus, Huo Yuao was far worse than Da Huobin if he were to compare the both of them. Da Yuheng smiled faintly and said, that would be for the best. Once we spend more time together, you'll get to know what kind of person I am. If Huo Yuao had been who he was before he entered Shrek Academy, he might not have been able to mask his emotions, and would definitely have been at a loss when confronting Da Yuheng. However, he had matured a lot over the past year. He knew that it was definitely not possible for him to get his revenge in such a short time. Since that was the case, he could only feign civility. Senior brother, I heard Senior Sister Ma mention an evil soul master just now. What's that? Even though Huo Yuao wasn't at Da Yuheng's level of cultivation, he hardly needed to expend a great deal of effort in running now. As a result of that, he could still use soul power to protect his nose and mouth to speak. Da Yuheng chuckled and said, I knew you were going to ask that question. Evil soul masters are also soul masters, but they're very scary. Even with his cultivation and self-confidence, Huo Yuao actually caught a smudge of fear in Da Yuheng's eyes when he added the word evil soul master. Huo Yuao had originally asked this question without thinking it through. However, he was secretly shocked that an elite of Shrek Academy like Da Yuheng was actually afraid of an evil soul master. Evil soul masters have been in existence since long ago. It is said that ancestor Tang Clan, who was part of the first generation of Shrek's 7 devils, encountered a powerful evil soul master one year. What's more, that individual was also an evil Douluo. He was nevertheless able to obtain a domain type ability from the other party. A so-called evil soul master is a soul master who has a few very exceptionally evil martial souls. Huo Yuao was shocked when he heard this and said, there are evil martial souls too. Da Yuheng nodded and said, martial souls can be anything. There's no distinction between good and evil if you view a martial soul on its own. But when the martial soul needs to be cultivated through special means, then that martial soul must definitely be evil. You'll understand when I give you an example. More than 600 years ago, a powerful evil soul master appeared on the continent. He eventually became a titled Douluo powerhouse, and granted himself the title of Blood Baby. His cultivation method was extremely unique, and his martial soul only awakened when he was 18 years old. After his martial soul awakened, he had a certain craving for babies. He needed to suck a baby's brain and swallow a baby's heart before he could cultivate. Don't you think this kind of soul master is evil? How many babies did he need to kill to cultivate from being a normal soul master to a titled Douluo? Huo Yuao felt a shiver run up his spine, all the way up to his scalp. That feeling that resembled pins and needles almost made him cry out in surprise. He never thought that a soul master like that actually existed in this world. Da Yuheng had the same look of fear in his eyes. Titled Douluo Blood Baby was tyrannically strong. In a short span of 20 years, he attained the rank of a titled Douluo through that evil cultivation method of his before he even turned 40. When he was using his soul power, a blood baby would appear, and with it would come incomparably frightening firepower and corrosive abilities. Amongst all of his 9 soul rings, the lowest one was 1,000 years old, and he even had 2 10,000-year soul rings. Later on, the previous commander of the Academy's Guardian Squad personally undertook the task of disposing of him. It took him 5 whole years to find him before eradicating him from the face of the earth. Before that, he had killed tens of teachers and students from our academy. What do you say? Isn't this evil soul master frightening? Perhaps evil soul masters weren't born evil, but the strength and power of every soul master is the same, and so it is very easy for one to walk the path of darkness. Who can resist the temptation of obtaining such powerful and readily available power? In the end, one can only follow the devil's path and fall from grace. These evil soul masters are the biggest enemies of the Guardian squad, and they are also the most difficult for us to deal with. But once we realize that an evil soul master has appeared, we must quickly eradicate them as fast as we can, because not only are they extremely destructive, but their growth is very rapid. Even though it is very difficult for an evil soul master to live too long a life, they can cause massive destruction in the years that they walk the face of the earth. Who are you? Suddenly felt enlightened. So it's like that. Thank you, senior brother. Even though he'd been on his guard around Dalu from the start, he couldn't help but admit that as an inner courtyard disciple, Dalu's knowledge and experience was far greater than his. Senior brother, I still have a question. Senior Sister Ma said that we have to complete this mission in 3 days. We've been progressing very quickly, but our academy is in the Heavenly Soul Empire, bordering the central north region of Daluo Empire. On the other hand, Ningdo Mountain is to the west of Daluo Empire, and is more than 1,000 miles away. We might not be able to hurry there in 3 days even if we were to give it our all. Let's not even talk about killing the enemy. Dalu gave him a mysterious smile. Don't be impatient. You'll know all about it in the afternoon. I believe that every single member of the preparatory team shares the same doubts as you. We're just an academy, but the amount of strength we have hidden is much greater than you can imagine. Regardless of whether we're talking about current students or ones who've already graduated, every single person related to the academy is a source of wealth. This includes manpower and connections. After a simple conversation, Hua Yuan gradually got used to talking with Da Yueheng. At the same time, he did his best to suppress his hatred to the depths of his heart. The two quickly became familiar with each other. Da Yueheng wasn't as serious as he looked from the outside, and unlike his silent brother Dai Huabin, he was much more entertaining. During the journey, he shared a few interesting stories about his assignments as a guardian, opening Hua Yuao's eyes to the larger world. After all, traveling 10,000 miles was better than reading 10,000 books. Hua Yuao began to recognize that he simply knew too little about the world. When compared to the entire Douluo continent, he was still a piece of white paper which only had an outline of a drawing sketched on it. The swift journey lasted all the way till midday before they stopped to rest. The students from the inner courtyard all had normal expressions, and their breathing was only slightly hurried at most. However, other than Hikeitu, who'd flown the entire journey with the assistance of a soul tool, the other 3 soul ancestors from the outer courtyard were drenched with sweat. Jiang Nanan was an agility-type soul master, and she had a nimble and agile body. As a result, she was left in a slightly better state. Though her sweat dripped from her body, her clothes weren't drenched. However, the assault-type Bei Bei and the defense-type Shu Sanchi were left in a miserable state. This was especially true for Shu Sanchi. He was the heaviest of the 4, and he left a huge mark of water when he landed on the ground. Hua Yuao, show off some of your abilities. Ma Xiaotao put Wang Dong down, then turned towards Hua Yuao. Ah, show what off? Hua Yuao asked, astonished. Ma Xiaotao laughed. What else? Food, of course. I don't think everyone here knows this, but at the very start, he sold roasted fish by the entrance to the academy every night to pay off his school fees. Right. I approve. Yuao's the best at this. Shu Sanchi, who was panting violently on the ground, raised his hands and feet. His appearance looked somewhat comical. Bei Bei laughed. You really look like an overturned tortoise. It's no wonder you're the Swanwu turtle. PSH. Jiang Nanan couldn't help but laugh after hearing Bei Bei's words. Shu Sanchi was about to explode, but he immediately changed his expression after hearing Jiang Nanan's laugh. He said angrily, seeing as you unused the goddess in my heart, I'll forgive you. At this moment, the gazes of everyone present were gathered on Hua Yuao. Even Elder Sun wasn't an exception to this. When everyone had been traveling earlier, there were no traces of him to be seen. When everyone stopped to rest, however, his alcohol drinking, chicken eating figure immediately appeared. Somewhat embarrassed, Hua Yuao said, but I have no ingredients. Actually, I only know how to make a few simple dishes. I don't know how to make any complicated ones. I only brought a few seasonings. Simple. Elder Sun suddenly appeared by Hua Yuao's side, and the latter was startled the moment he opened his mouth. Xiaota, you're in charge of lighting a fire. Da Yueheng, Zhen Zifeng, I'll give you a task. Go catch some fish, the more the better. Ling Luoken, Zai Zai, go catch some wild game. Gong Yangmo, go follow them. Yao Hashwen hurriedly raised his chest to volunteer himself. Elder Sun, what about me? Elder Sun glared at him unhappily. You, just stay there obediently. Do you think this old man will eat something that a bastard like you spits out? Actually, it's very clean. Yao Hashwen said flatteringly. If you don't want to stay hungry, quickly get to work. Hua Yuao, you're the chef today. Everyone else, go find some charcoal. Don't just laze around. As he spoke, Elder Sun sauntered over to Hua Yuao, then whispered, is the roasted fish you make really delicious? Hua Yuao scratched his head. It should be quite decent. Elder Sun nodded. Then this old man will stay hungry for a bit to try your work. If I'm not satisfied, humph, I'll make you wear tiny shoes in the academy. This. Hua Yuao didn't know whether to laugh or to cry at seeing Elder Sun's expression. The latter seemed as though the heavens and the earth didn't matter compared to food. It had to be said that the elites of Shrek Academy were absolutely impressive at completing tasks. Within a mere 15 minutes, a sufficient amount of firewood was placed in front of Hua Yuao, who built a temporary stove by using the rocks around him. After a few more moments, Gong Yangmo, Zai Zai, and Ling Luoken returned with 2 hares, 2 pheasants, and even a plump deer in tow. Start. Elder Sun waved his bottle gourd at Hua Yuao, signaling for the latter to start. As Hua Yuao watched astonishedly, Ling Luoken revealed a delicate use of soul power. Under the effects of her ice element, the 5 wild animals floated up into the air. Then, she stripped them, tidied them up, and cleaned them as though she was skillfully carving an ox. Within the blink of an eye, 5 cleaned up pieces of first-rate game appeared in front of Hua Yuao. What a powerful control of ice. Hua Yuao sighed inwardly in praise. Although he had an ultimate ice martial soul, he was much weaker than Ling Luoken in terms of control. After peeling away the outer layer of wood from the charcoal, Hua Yuao started cooking. Sure enough, he brought a few seasonings along with him. Furthermore, there were quite a few types of them. Perhaps it was due to his destitute childhood, but even though he had a fixed amount of savings already, he still brought a few of these things along with him whenever he went out. The amount of oil that was present in these animals that had grown up in the wild was sufficient, and hence he didn't need to add too much oil. However, the most important thing was still his control of fire. Just like when he was roasting fish in the past, Hua Yuao rubbed his own seasonings on the stomachs of the animals before starting to control the fire. His roasting technique was actually rather simple. After asking Ma Xiaotao to ignite the charcoal, he took a stick of dry wood and occasionally prodded the charcoal within the stove. At the same time, he flipped the animals on the stove. The facts had once again proven that spiritual detection was rather good when cooking. After a while, the fragrant smell of meat started to diffuse outwards. The wild animals on the stove had turned an even, golden yellow color, and hissing sounds had begun to ring out from the stove as a result of the fat dripping into the fire. However, it was at this exact moment that the fragrance of the meat was at its strongest. Currently, Elder Sun looked like a gluttonous child. He wasn't even drinking his alcohol as he squatted beside Hua Yuao, waiting anxiously. Furthermore, he would even glare viciously at the others who were swallowing their saliva, as if he were claiming the area around Hua Yuao as his own. At this moment, Da Yueheng and Chen Zifeng returned. From a distance, the two of them were able to smell the fragrance that came from Hua Yuao's stove. They were greatly astonished at Hua Yuao, who was busily working his skill in a familiar manner. He's only a second-year student, which means that he isn't even 13. Just how is he this good at cooking? They brought back the fish, and Chen Zifeng had even fashioned his outer shirt into a pocket that contained a clump of mushrooms. The delicate mushrooms even contained a few traces of last night's stew, and their fresh and tender surface resembled the skin of a young girl. The two of them walked up to Hua Yuao, and Da Yueheng said, Yuao, we've brought the fish back. The two of them had indeed brought back a large amount of fish. The two of them had brought back a total of 7 to 8 kilos worth of fish, and they threaded them through using a string. As a result, the string resembled a bridge that separated him and Chen Zifeng by a total of 5 meters. Hua Yuao looked up, then revealed a look of happiness as he looked at the mushrooms in Chen Zifeng's bosom. 2 seniors, I need a wooden walk. Sister Ling, I'll have to trouble you to help clean these fishes. You don't have to descale them, just cleaning their innards is fine. Okay. Ling Luokan nodded. Unexpectedly, she revealed a seldom smile as she looked at the serious Hua Yua. Her impression of her seemingly omnipotent junior brother grew increasingly deeper, and she couldn't help but think of her own naughty little brother. The problem of the wooden wok only needed 2 minutes to be resolved. Dai Yueheng used brute force to overturn a large tree, then allowed Chen Zifeng's soul-chasing sword to carve it up. Then, a perfectly round large wok appeared in front of Hua Yua. However, Ling Luokan quickly used her ice element to clean it up as a result of the bloody smell coming from the soul-chasing sword. At this moment, the 5 wild animals were nearly cooked, the first of which to be finished were the 2 pieces of chicken. The moment Hua Yua took them off the grill, he instantly felt his hands lighten. A figure had already run off into the distance with 2 chickens in tow, only leaving behind the words, "I'll leave the rest to you guys." Yao Haoxuan couldn't help but sigh at this scene. A wild chicken still a chicken. Elder Sun should be called Elder Chicken. Are you trying to die? An unclear voice suddenly exploded out like a bolt of thunder. Right after that, Yao Haoxuan was sent flying into the air, landing in the fork of a nearby tree as he let out a miserable wail. Shu Sanqi let out a muffled laugh with his hand covering his mouth. Senior Yao actually called Elder Sun a gay dude. Isn't he just waiting for a calamity to befall him? Bei Bei nodded in agreement. Right. The gay dude's clearly you. Bullshit. This brother of yours only likes girls. I like girls with big butts. Shu Sanqi said indignantly. However, he didn't expect to see Jiang Nanan's murderous eyes again after he spoke. She humped angrily, then left to the side. Fuck. Bei Bei, this old man wants to fight with you. Shu Sanqi ran towards Bei Bei, red in the face. Then you better not think of eating my junior brother's roasted meat. Bei Bei said calmly. Shu Sanqi's hand was about to touch Bei Bei's body, but he instantly stopped. He angrily stayed his hand. I'm gonna take care of you once I'm done eating. Bei Bei, do you know what I hate most about you? Bei Bei shook his head. Bei Bei shook his head in a very serious manner. How is a man supposed to know what a pig is thinking? You. Shu Sanqi had no choice but to stay indignant due to Bei Bei's threat. This old man hates the fact that you keep spouting bullshit with an innocent look on your face. You're clearly an evil bastard. I really don't know why Xiaoya likes you. Bei Bei instantly replied, because mine's bigger. Bullshit. Shu Sanqi immediately rose to his feet. Is yours as big as this, daddy's? Bei Bei raised his index and middle fingers towards Shu Sanqi. First off, I won't compare myself to shelled peanuts. Afterwards, he put down his index finger, which left only his middle finger extended. Second, I was referring to my age. I can't take it anymore. Shu Sanqi finally bared his fangs and pounced towards Bei Bei. However, it was at that exact instant that Hua Yua's voice distracted him. The rabbit's done. To a human, being ripped apart by 5 horses was definitely one of the most miserable tortures they could suffer. However, the most appalling tragedy that could occur to 2 wild rabbits was being divided amongst 10 or so people. The instant that Hua Yua spoke, the 2 rabbits were torn apart and scattered. This was a classic example of there being too many wolves, yet too little meat. The funniest thing that Hua Yua took away from this was the fact that his seniors even had to compete with each other in terms of strength while eating. Ma Xiaotao was the strongest of the lot, and was also the quickest. As such, she was also the first person to make her move. Dai Yueheng wasn't much slower than her, thus the 2 were able to split one of the roasted rabbits amongst themselves. The rest of them, on the other hand, had to split a single rabbit amongst them. Shu Sanqi was once again the most miserable of the lot. As an extremely slow defense type soulmaster, he was only able to obtain a rabbit head. Of course, there were still a few people who were a bit worse off than him. Wang Dong and Xia Xiao, who had the lowest cultivation levels amongst the 14, didn't get anything. However, Hua Yua had managed to keep 2 rabbit legs for them when Ma Xiaotao and Dai Yueheng had grabbed the first rabbit. There were too many wolves and not enough food. As such, Hua Yua's busy job had just begun. He didn't begin roasting fish immediately. Instead, he had Ling Luokan fill the wooden wok with ice, then had Ma Xiaotao heat it till the ice had melted and begun to boil. Afterwards, he added the mushrooms that Chen Zifeng had brought back, then threw 2 fish into it. Ma Xiaotao's current appearance was definitely enough to overturn a country. In one hand, she held one half of a rabbit and ate it heartily. With her other hand, she heated up the wooden wok using her phoenix flames. Her control over fire wasn't any less than Ling Luokan's control over ice. Thus the water within the wooden wok gradually began to boil. Due to her meticulous control, only the outer layer of the wok started to blacken. There were no signs of it being burnt. Hua Yua was even more skilled at roasting fish than they were at controlling fire. The stove was large enough for him to roast 4 fish at once. A fragrant smell soon began to diffuse outwards. By this point, the plump deer head was almost done. Even teacher Wang Yan, who usually didn't have many requirements regarding food, was moved by the smell. He retrieved a few leather bags, each of which contained some black-colored foodstuffs, then passed them to everyone present. These were the prepackaged meals that inner courtyard disciples usually ate when they went out on assignments. They were made using more than 10 different types of medicinal herbs, alongside several refined ingredients that were highly nutritious. They had an extremely high amount of nutritional content, and could help one recover their physical strength in an extremely short period of time. They were very useful to inner courtyard disciples. However, there was just one problem with these foodstuffs. They didn't taste very good. Considering the fact that Wang Yan had tagged along this time, their current mission was relatively difficult. Not only did he have to serve as the leader of the team for the Continental Advanced Academy Soul Dueling Tournament, but he also had to deal with the logistics for the students. Considering Elderson's personality, would he be the sort of guy to do something like this? The importance of his appearance was more to act as a deterrent. They all ate lunch together, beaming with joy. They had originally planned to rest for only an hour or 2, but in the end, they stayed for over 3 hours. Everyone ate until they were filled to the brim. Both the fish's size and Hua Yua's cooking technique were more than enough to sate everyone's appetite. Once everyone had finished their meal, the 7 seniors from the inner courtyard and the 7 students from the outer courtyard immediately gathered together, which caused their relationships to improve by a decent amount. This was especially true for Hua Yua, who had become the most popular of the bunch now. The thick soup that had been made with mushrooms and fish was also delicious. Hua Yua had only added a pinch of salt, but the soup tasted very good. The funniest thing was that Elderson hadn't been able to finish his soup because he'd already eaten 2 chickens and 4 fish. However, he'd taken out a large calabash and proceeded to pour half a wok of the soup into it, supposedly to finish it during their journey. Everyone else couldn't help but think of the phrase, "If you can't eat it all, you'll have to take it home." But nobody dared to say anything about it after what had happened to Yao Haoxuan. "Yuao, I'll carry you this time. I'm not much slower than Dai Yueheng." Yao Haoxuan laughed cunningly. "Forget about it," Chen Zifeng said unhappily. "It's already good that you can keep up with the rest of us. It'd be best if an assault-type soulmaster like us did it instead. Junior brother, following your brother Chen can't go wrong. Don't worry, I'll take care of any ingredients you need in the future. Ice is still more suited to be with ice. I can also take you along with me." The normally cold Ling Luokan unexpectedly spoke up. The moment her words rang out, the entire place turned silent. The ice lady, who was famous in the inner courtyard as such, had never spoken such nice words to a male before. She'd never even been to a formal marriage interview held in the inner courtyard. Yet, she seemed to treat Hua Yua somewhat differently. In the end, Hua Yua ended up continuing onwards with Dai Yueheng. His reasoning was sufficient. 1. His strength. Secondly, to continue with his arrangements from the morning. The 14 students were truly quite quick. Even though they'd rested for such a long time, they'd still obtained a sufficient amount of nutrients. They finally arrived at the border between the Heavenly Soul Empire and the Dalu Empire after 2 hours. When they arrived, a large army camp blocked the path in front of them. Dai Yueheng put Hua Yua down, then entered the barracks by himself. Hua Yua rapidly learned why Dai Yueheng had been so secretive in the morning. They didn't enter the barracks, yet Dai Yueheng borrowed more than 10 military-grade flying-type soul tools. If a soulmaster wanted to fly, the only way for him to do so other than having a martial soul that could fly would be to wait until he'd become a 7-ringed soul sage. However, one could only rely on pure soul power to fly short distances at that rank. Only titled Douluo-ranked super experts were capable of flying extended distances. However, flying-type soul tools first began to appear in the Sun Moon Empire following the rapid development of soul tools. Their appearance brought about enormous trouble to the neighboring Heavenly Soul and Dalu empires. The 2 countries used almost all of their strength to obtain the blueprints for the Sun Moon Empire's flying-type soul tools, then manufactured their own. A flying-type soul tool could naturally only be utilized by soulmasters, and it also had a relatively high cost of production. Normally, only soulmasters with at least 4 soul rings could use one. The army didn't have many of these soul tools either. After all, 4-ring soulmasters were simply too few in number. Despite this, Dai Yueheng had managed to borrow more than 10 flying-type soul tools in one go. This wasn't something that a normal person could do. This made all sorts of feelings well up in Hua Yua's heart. Right. Dalu Heng's father was the White Tiger Duke, the commander of the Daluo Empire. If he used his identity as the eldest son of the Duke's first wife, what did borrowing a few flying type soul tools amount to? Huro Yuao clenched his fists when he thought of that person. Fortunately, a large part of his attention was drawn to the flying type soul tools, thus he didn't lose his composure in front of everyone else. The Daluo Empire's flying type soul tools were somewhat cumbersome. The main body of the soul tool was a meter long, half-meter wide, and 1 foot thick metallic box. The two sides of the box were connected to a set of folded wings, which would have a 4-meter wingspan when they were unfurled. These ensured that the user would have enough buoyancy in midair. This wasn't their first time that the inner courtyard disciples had used a flying type soul tool. However, Dalu Heng patiently gave a simple tutorial to the students from the outer courtyard. The most important step in using a flying type soul tool was the takeoff, during which the user had to pour their soul power into the soul tool and shoot it towards the ground. The user could unfurl its wings once they'd risen into the air, then could rely on the turbulence in the air to float. After that, they only needed to convert their downwards propulsion into a parallel one by the soul tool to be able to accelerate in midair. However, there was a certain difficulty involved in the usage of a flying type soul tool. Only a soul master with 4 or more soul rings could use one due to the amount of soul power required to reach an altitude of a certain level. If the user wasn't that strong, they wouldn't be able to reach that height, which in turn meant that they wouldn't have enough buoyancy to even float in the air, much less fly. At that moment, a problem arose due to Hua Yuao, Wang Dong, and Xia Xiao's cultivation levels. However, there was a more pragmatic solution to this, which was relatively simple. That solution was for them to let someone else bring them into the sky, then let that person fly using the flying type soul tool. Of course, it was somewhat simpler for Wang Dong, as he could fly in the first place. It wouldn't be too hard for him to rely on the radiant butterfly goddess wings to rise into the air, then fly forwards with the flying type soul tool. Thus, the real problem lay with Hua Yuao and Xia Xiao. He didn't use the flying type soul tool that Dalu Heng had brought over, as he brought one himself. Furthermore, his one was much more compact and delicate. His was only half the size of the Daluo Empire's, while its wings were somewhat smaller. Despite this, it was clearly more effective. Not only had he brought one for himself, he'd also brought one for Hua Yuao as well. Wang Yan said, students from the outer courtyard, go practice using your flying type soul tools for a bit. Students from the inner courtyard, you're responsible for teaching and protecting them. Dalu Heng had originally planned to help Hua Yuao, but he now had no choice but to extinguish this thought when he saw Hikato helping the latter get used to the delicate flying type soul tool made by the soul tool department. As Hikato helped Hua Yuao put on the flying type soul tool, he said, Yuao, once you reach a high level of cultivation, our teacher will teach you how to make a flying type soul tool. The soul tools made by our soul tool department only need their users to have 3 or more soul rings, and they're more economical with their use of soul power. However, these aren't the most advanced types of flying type soul tools on the market. Supposedly, the Sun Moon Empire has managed to add a special gem that's capable of storing and replenishing soul power to their flying type soul tools. Even a one-ring soul master is able to use them once it's stored enough soul power. Hua Yuao was astonished. Can soul power even be stored in a soul tool? Hikato smiled bitterly. Exactly. Currently, this is the greatest gap between us and the Sun Moon Empire. However, it isn't that easy to complete this piece of research. The Sun Moon Empire wants to allow ordinary people to use soul tools. However, if a day like that truly comes, a great war would be inevitable. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.